Christmas, and like many, I'm sure, here, Christmas is my favorite season of the year. How many can say amen to that? Okay. The two of you who are excited, you say amen. Okay, for me at least. Now, Christmas is an exciting time for me. I absolutely love Christmas. I love the winter season. I like to be able to wear stuff that hides this awesome body. And so that's why I put on sweaters and jackets and all. It's just a great time for people like me. But I just enjoy everything that Christmas brings. I love the worship aspect of it. It really sets things in motion, at least for me personally. It presses the reset button for what this year, at least for me, I don't know how things are for you, but for me especially, regardless of what kind of year you might have had, whether it's been the best year of your life, or maybe you just can't wait for this year to end, or whatever might have transpired for you personally, I know that for that instant, you tend to reflect back, and you look back at your year, and for me, at least, the Christmas season just reminds me again what it's all about, church. You think about all the blessings, you think about, regardless, like I say, depending on the kind of year you might have had, I say for us it's been a tough year, but it's been probably the most rewarding year in ways that I didn't really understand until you frame it as such. When you get into a spirit of worship and you really focus on the King of Kings, Christ has a way of really reminding you how blessed you really are, church. And maybe that's a challenge pre-sermon-wise, the challenge I lay out to everybody is take time, if you haven't already, to really up your game when it comes to your personal worship experience. Not just here on the Sunday morning, but in your personal worship time. Because in that presence, and you just think about it, in his presence, man, Christ has a way of really setting things right for you. And you start again to realize how blessed you truly are and how powerful the Christmas story is for every single person who allows it in. Amen, church? So that's just a little pre-sermon challenge to you. Christmas, again, we've in case you guys, just a little shameless plug, but if you haven't already realized, Longview First Assembly has a Facebook page. The reason I'm saying all that is it seems like, I think, if Austin might correct me on this, every day we're posting something, whether it's a question or some kind of a Christmas blessing type or encouragement of something. And it's been, I've had a blast. In case you haven't already, go to the Longview First Assembly Facebook page and like it so that you can stay on top of everything that's happening. You can receive every morning, or maybe at least, I don't know how many times a week, we send something out. Especially during this season, it seems like every day there's something. But I've enjoyed reading your responses to some of the questions that are out there as far as what is your favorite, let's say maybe favorite Christmas food. So many ranges of food that were listed on there. It's actually kind of funny, from Asian to Mexican to somewhere in between all that, to burgers, to tamales, praise the Lord for those. And so, amen. And so there's been a whole range of everything like that, famous Christmas memories. I've enjoyed really reading some of those and just favorite memories. And so it's really been a blast to see and catch a little bit of glimpse, even by social media, into some of your lives. We don't ever get a chance really, and corporately, to really sit down and engage in these types of conversations and to really find out what makes some of you tick. And so it's been nice through the avenue of Facebook and the social media page on Longview First Assembly to get to know some of you and to really, some of your responses has been really a blessing. It really has. So keep that up. Keep sharing that as much as you can. It really serves as a great encouragement to spread that around. And there might be others that will read that. Social media numbers, or at least statistics, tell us that your reach on social media can reach as far as 200 people. I don't know if you knew that or not. So when you share something or you post something, even though you might not have maybe 200 friends, some of you have probably 10,000, and you're just the guy of all Facebook. But regardless of how many friends you might have, your reach, according to social media, is about 200 people. You're saying, why am I saying all that? Because that can be, even through social media, you'd be surprised how God can use something as such to be an encouragement to somebody. I promise you, I've actually had private messages, even this week, just recently, even as recent as Friday, I received a personal message to me that's not, wasn't public, just straight to my inbox, that just said, man, thank you for this. Someone who was encouraged by reading something that the church might have sent out. That just needed it for that day. So praise the Lord for that. Amen, church, you just never know. So keep that up, keep posting your memories, and whenever, try your best to share as much as you're able and comfortable sharing. But the Christmas story, I absolutely love. And but it's also one of the most challenging stories. And I just shared this with my class on Wednesday night. We had a great discussion and a great night. The Holy Spirit really moved. And we had some great discussions. I also asked them a question about the Christmas story. And I wanted them to actually take their Sunday school hat off and be as real as they can. But the Christmas story, it really is an incredible, but it's also an impossible story that many people have a hard time believing. And when you actually hear the backstory of what makes this possible, folks, and now we brought this down here because this is a visual. There's something powerful about the Christmas story and the manger scene, but when you get the entire backstory and you get the whole story of what sets that story right there up, the Christmas story, it becomes a whole new level of a remarkable story. Can you say amen, church? So that's where we're going to be at today. We're talking a little bit about what that looks like. And let me just, here's the crux of what I want to share with you today. The Christmas story doesn't begin with the couple who are trying to figure out how in the world they became pregnant. Okay? I know we think about this and we see this and it's cute and we say that's the manger scene, and you have this dear couple right here with Joseph, and I got to be honest with you, Joseph is really cool here, and if you can see him, he's doing this. And so, Joseph, you have this couple here, and we say this is where Christmas began. It begins with a couple who are trying to figure out how in the world they became pregnant. That's not where it starts. This is where the backstory comes in, because Christmas starts with the couple who were trying to figure out why they couldn't get pregnant. That's where it starts. So I'll take you all the way back to Genesis, and we'll talk about a man in his 70s, a woman in her 70s, who were given probably the most incredible, unbelievable promise from God. And this couple, the Christmas story starts with a couple trying to figure out why they can't get pregnant. You guys with me say amen? So that's where we're going to be going today. In Genesis, we find the promise that God made to Abram, who we later come to know as Abraham. And God says to Abraham, go from your country, your people, your father's household to the land that I will show you. So God starts off the Christmas story by telling this man, I want you to leave everyone you know. I want you to leave everything you know. And I want and when you get there, I'll let you know when you get there. How would you guys like that? Say amen right now. Some of you guys look at me, there's no way possible I will actually leave something, and that's hard to do. If you ever, let me just poll people here, just make sure you guys are awake. How many here has ever moved? Raise your hand. Hey, look around, folks. So all of you with a hand raised, you understand at least a little bit of what it's like to leave something very familiar, a place where you know you have your roots down, you know people, you are familiar with stuff, and all of a sudden you have to move, whatever the reason that made you move to begin with. Well, this is what's happening with Abraham. And so he's been told, I want you to leave everyone you know, I want you to leave everything you know, and when you get there, I'll let you know. How would you guys like that? Now, for me, I'm wired where I'm a destination person. Again, I think we talked about this when it comes to road trips. I like to know where we're going, and I like to stay on time. I make the same into that. If we're off schedule by 5 minutes, it just ruins it for me, and I've got to make up time somehow. So I catch the back wind, and I just tear it up. I mean, it's awesome. We get going. But God's telling Abraham, you know what? I'm not going to tell you where you're going, but when you get there, I'll let you know. How many of you guys like that? Can you say amen? It's tough. This is where the Christmas story is starting. And then the promise gets dropped on Abraham. Here's the promise. I'll make you a great nation. Okay? It starts with there. I will make you a great nation. Put that into perspective, folks. Again, I'm not going to go through a whole entire lesson in health class. Hopefully everyone here has learned a little bit about how that works. But in order to have a great nation, you've got to be able to produce people. Okay? You've got to make people. And they haven't made people yet. Remember? You have a couple trying to figure out why they can't get pregnant. In their 70s. Okay, folks? Nothing against people in their 70s. Oh, you got to do your 70s. Come on, you got to raise your hand like you do. Okay, come on. Y'all be proud. I'm not quite there yet. Yeah, be proud. Come on, you live it out. It's awesome. You're in your prime. Oh, yes? You're in your prime. Okay? Abraham and Sarah been dropped a huge promise. I'm going to make a great nation out of you. And I'm sure Abraham is going, you've got to be crazy. Where is this going to come from? God, at last I checked, in order to have a nation, you got to have people. And we ain't got none, Tommy. Okay, now he doesn't call God Tommy, but that's how I would say it. We ain't got none, Tommy. This ain't working. Then God continues the promise. And I will bless you, and I will make your name great. Whew. Then he doesn't stop there. And you will be a blessing to all people. Did you guys hear that? That's the promise that was dropped on Abraham. I will make you a great nation. You will be a blessing to all people. Incredible. But let me put the context of what's happening here, folks. That made no sense, especially in that culture and in that time. When you hear this word, you're going to be a nation. Well, if that was already difficult enough, God says, but you're going to be a blessing to all people. Blessing wasn't exactly something that was kind of handed out back in the day. This is the time and age, and you guys have read the Old Testament. I love the Old Testament. I talked about this before with my kids growing up, and we discussed some of God's Word, and we discussed the Old Testament. They absolutely, when you paint the picture, it is, and you don't need really to go to the movies. I mean, the violence, and you go in the village and rape. You don't need Clash of Clans, folks. You just read Genesis in the Old Testament, and you've got everything happening right there. And this is the time period where communities and villages are all raped, and there's plundering, and there's taking of people and as to their own. I mean, there's a lot of violence happening. The last thing that's happening is people blessing each other. It just wasn't happening during that time. So God tells Abraham, I'm going to create a nation out of you, and you're going to be a blessing. Everyone's going to know your name, and you're going to be a blessing to all people. Folks, that was incredible. So let's fast forward over into Abraham's family tree. And again, folks, this is the Christmas story. So Abraham and Sarah, as you guys might know, did have a son. His name was Isaac. Isaac had two sons, okay, Jacob and Esau. Esau's name should have been listed first, but you guys know a little bit of that story. Jacob was a little bit sneaky in the way he did things, and so he took that birthright, and he was listed first. And if you know anything about that culture, that was a huge deal. And let me just set some of you free in here, because some of you, I'm looking at your faces. If you want to feel good about your dysfunction, and again, in Christmas, it's always happening, folks, and everyone's got it. We've got it. Everyone has that dysfunction happening in your family, and it's always the family ego sees, never you, right? And so, if you want to feel good about your own dysfunction, read read the Word. And read this story. I mean, feel good. If some of you have some crazy, insane kids, you want to feel good about your crazy, insane kids, then read this. You think, man, my kid really ain't that bad. Not bad at all. You read some of this story, and it'll set it in motion. So you have that going on, Jacob and Esau. Jacob had 12 sons. 10 of those sons didn't like the one brother. His name is what? Joseph. So he had 12 sons. 10 of them didn't like the one brother, thought he was an idiot. And they were tired of his game. And so they're like, well, we can change all this by getting rid of him. And so they devised a plan. Isn't that awesome story? Don't you just love a Christmas story? And so it continues, folks. It gets better. So you have these sons, the 10 sons devise a plan to get rid of the one brother because they don't like him. And they devise a plan how they can fool their dad. And they're thinking all this happened. And so fast forward a little bit, and you get into Joseph's story. Joseph's story. So you have Joseph, who was sold into slavery, so that's how they did, threw him into a pit. Then these people came by, they sold him, and they said, "Look, this story's getting better. Let's sell him, and this makes it all better. And it's a win-win because we get some money out of this. We got Christmas money because we sold our brother." Isn't that awesome? Don't you just love a pretty stick and get better, folks? So you have Joseph sold into slavery. He ends up in Egypt. And through many of God's interventions and just the story continue to unfold as it goes along, and God being exactly who he is, Joseph, through a lot of circumstances, ends up second in command. And because of that, he has the influence to bring his entire clan, the whole family, comes to Egypt. You say amen. The entire family, wives, sons, kids, their goats, their moron puppies, their everything they own, everything. We're going to travel all the way to Egypt. And then the story continues to unfold. Folks, I'm telling you, this ties into this, if you just stay tuned. So they all end up in Egypt. And like any good family, that they just continue to grow. And then all of a sudden, this promise that was dropped on Abraham is starting to come true. Israel started to become Israel now, and they're growing, and continue to grow in influence and power until you have a Pharaoh in Egypt who's just not liking the way things are going. You guys are getting too big for us. So then you have the story that continues to where you have a very jealous, a very hateful Pharaoh who says, you Israelites are getting too big for us, and I'm going to have to take care of that. And so now, Israel becomes slaves. And not just slaves overnight. We're talking they were slaves for a long, long time. So, several hundred years, the people who came out of Abraham, okay, we'll follow the story here. So, several hundred years, the people who came out of Abraham was supposed to be a blessing. You guys remember that promise? They were supposed to be a blessing to the world, now find themselves as slaves. How do you guys love the Christmas story so far? Can you say amen? It is incredible. Man, you're such an encouragement, Pastor. I'm so glad I showed up today. So glad. So this continues. So to keep going the backstory, let's fast forward to Moses now. Now we have a few hundred more years go by. The Israelites, this nation, find themselves as slaves, and then God says, it was time for me to send my deliverer. So you have Moses. You guys know the story. Moses goes to Egypt, and he rescues Israel, gets them out of Pharaoh's reign. They cross the Red Sea. That's an incredible story. Man, guys, it's so awesome. I'm telling you guys, if you're not reading the Word, and I just throw this plug in there, and I hope I get a huge amen out of this. If you're not reading God's Word, you're missing out on some incredible truth. Amen, church? It's just awesome. So you have Israel crossing the Red Sea. What an awesome story that is. The Egyptians get buried and all that. I mean, God just rescues them and does some incredible things for his people. So you have Moses who delivered them into the promised land. They finally get to the promised land. Moses didn't do all that, but he got them close. So about 1,000 years, let me bring it to see. So 1,000 years after God made that promise to Abraham. Church, stay with me here. 1,000 years after that God made that promise, let me bring it to speed what we know so far. Abraham does become a family. That family becomes a nation. And now that nation has become a kingdom, the kingdom of Israel. Isn't that incredible how the story starts to unfold? Now let's fast forward a little bit more and we get to, because of the kingdom, you have a king. And you have King David. King David comes and steps into the scene of this great story that God has unfolded. And King David also called the warrior king. And King David's thing is, he is, again, being a warrior king, he was incredible at his giftedness, which is be able to settle all the disputes that has happened through the years of everyone conquering this, the Israelites here, and picking on them here, and this is happening, you stole this from Israel. So King David goes and he's conquering everybody. I'm going to settle all this, and as the warrior king, he sets things right. Then King David has a son. His son's name is Solomon. Solomon's called the builder king. So Solomon's job, because it wasn't King David's job to rebuild the temple, it was Solomon's job. And so Solomon's going to get to rebuild this incredible, beautiful. He didn't just build the temple. That was just included in the beauty that Solomon was able to do. But Solomon rebuilt all kinds of buildings. And there was people who would come from all over just to see the buildings that Solomon would make. Just incredible. An incredible king at one time. But then things start going kind of south. And there's no kind about it. They went south, folks. God told Solomon very specifically, you shall not marry these type of women over here. Solomon decided, you know what, God, I think I know best. I am the builder king. I am wise beyond all years. You've given me this wisdom, so I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And so Solomon decides to go a different direction and marry some of the foreign women that God told him not to go to. The result of that, here's the result of that. Again, folks, if you read God's word, there's consequences to everything that we do. So Solomon marries these women that are not of their time. And with that comes their customs. And all of a sudden, Solomon starts to switch things and do something that God told him not to do. Besides marrying people he was not supposed to marry, he starts taking on their customs, which brings their worship style, if you will. And so he starts to worship other idols and other gods as a result of his disobedience. You guys still with me? Say amen. So you have all that happening, and God fulfills a promise that he spoke to Solomon. Now, again, guys, I'm telling you, God is great at this. And so he fulfills another promise he spoke to Solomon, and God says, if you forsake me, and if you go after other gods, I will divide this nation, and I will tear down the temple that you built in my name. So that has happened, and now let's fast forward now to the divided nation. This great nation now, remember guys, Abraham became family, nation, kingdom. Now because of choices, this kingdom is now divided. You have the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. You have the northern kingdom now, who's Israel. The southern kingdom is Judah. And each one of them in their own selves, I guess so to speak, have become weak because now they're divided. Because they're not as strong together, now they're divided. Because they're divided, they become weak. Through these years, in several hundred years, you have the Assyrians come and they conquer the northern kingdom, and in southern kingdom, Judah, they're about to implode themselves because of their choices, and then the Assyrians and others come and conquer them. And so the bottom line to that is in fact, the northern kingdom becomes unrecognizable, doesn't even exist anymore because of all the choices. Folks, isn't that, and it's horrible. Now what has happened is something that becomes so beautiful, and yet the promise has never been so further out of reach. In the middle of all that, church, listen, this is where the Christmas story really gets good. In the middle of all that dysfunction, in the middle of all that, church, listen, God sends his prophet, the prophet Isaiah. Okay? Through all that chaos, all disobedience, everything that's happened. And again, this is a time period where there's not a lot of speaking going on back and forth between God, and it just didn't happen a lot. But God still spoke. Let's not make any mistake about that. God still spoke, but he used prophets. In this instant, the prophet Isaiah steps into the story to deliver a message. And that's how God spoke to his people. And just another plug, if those of you not involved already on Wednesday nights, this coming year, we're going to continue into our study in the minor prophets. It's an incredible study we're doing, so I would love you to come out. But right in the middle of all this, hundreds of years just messed up. God sends the prophet Isaiah. And listen to the promise. He tells Isaiah to speak to his people. And this is the Edgar summary of it, but listen to this. I will make you a light for the Gentiles. That was something that was never expected. I'm going to do something through you, Israel, so that all Jewish and non-Jewish people will look in your direction and you'll be a light to the world. Did you catch that? This is now a very dysfunctional, a very divided nation. Because of choices, because of disobedience, because of everything that has happened. And God steps into the scene again, but through a prophet this time, and he tells them another promise, so to speak. You, Israel, who is now unrecognizable, not even a nation anymore, again, here's this incredible, impossible promise that God speaks. You, Israel, I'm going to use you to be a light to the world. Not only will the Jewish nation come to know me, but those who are non-Jews, the Gentiles. That's you and I, folks. We talked about that before. This is where you and I come into the picture. All those who are non-Jews, the Gentiles, they will come to know me because of you. And you will be a light to the world. You catch that, church? Here's the problem with that. Whatever is left of Israel is saying, we can't even be a light to ourselves. How can we be a light to the world? Once again, what's happening on the surface, what they're seeing with their physical eyes is definitely not matching up to the promise God's speaking to them. God, you've got to be crazy. And I'm sure they're looking at Isaiah going, Isaiah, you need to go back to whatever hole you came out of, because what you're speaking is crazy talk. How in the world are we going to be a light when we can't even be a light to ourselves? How can salvation, listen to this, how can salvation come from us when we can't even save ourselves? Where did that salvation come from? Because Isaiah does speak something. Remember, folks, if you know the word, he does talk about the Christmas story. Isaiah 7:14 says, therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and will call him what, church? Emmanuel. You catch that? We read that sometimes and go straight through it just to get to the present sometimes. But that was an incredible promise spoken in a period of time that made no sense to a group of people who desperately needed to hear it, but had no idea that this was actually going to be fulfilled through them someday. Did you catch all that? And through all that, God is still speaking promises. So now, let's fast forward to the New Testament. You have the New Testament now. This is a few hundred more years goes by, and things have become increasingly hopeless. I mean, it can't get any more hopeless than right now. This promise that was spoken thousands of years ago to Abraham, and this promise that was spoken through Isaiah to these people, if they're thinking about this promise that God is telling them, it is so far out of reach, it makes no sense whatsoever, to where I don't think some even remember anymore even being spoken. That's how far-reaching this promise has been. This is how hopeless things have become. And then all of a sudden, God speaks again in a whole new way. Because this is exactly how God wanted things to be. You still with me there, church? This is exactly where God wanted it to be. So he sent he sent the angel Gabriel, okay? He sent angel Gabriel to Nazareth, specifically in a town in Galilee, to a virgin girl named Mary. This is why I asked you at the very beginning of this to really, let's get as real as we can be here today, church. The Christmas story is it's an incredible, powerful, but a very impossible story when you really think about it. The angel showed up to a teenage girl. Why Mary? In a little town. She gets delivered one huge, incredible promise. Are you still with me today, church? I'm going to read this to you. This is what the angel says. We find this in Luke chapter 1. Verses 28 through 33. And many of you probably read this story in your homes or wherever you celebrate Christmas. We read this every year, and I think this will put a little bit better perspective for you this year. So the angel went to her and said, in verse 28, the angel went to her and said, greetings, you who are highly favored. Did you catch that? You who are highly favored. The Lord is with you. Mary was greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. That's probably would have been some of your response today. But the angel said to her, do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great, and he will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David. Did you catch that? And he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. His kingdom will never end. Church, did you catch that? Again, the Christmas story didn't just start here. It started long ago through promises after promises after promises being spoken over a nation. They didn't believe it, probably didn't act on it. In fact, disobeyed through it all. So Edgar, what are you getting at with this today? Here's what I'm getting at, folks. Now listen to me. I don't want this to get lost. In the end, God kept his promise. You catch that? In the end, God kept his promise to Abraham. All nations would be blessed through Abraham. Israel would be a light to the whole world because of Jesus. The Christmas story really did begin 2,000 years before this even happened. And here we are 2,000 years later, and the Christmas story is still unfolding before your eyes, church. Catch that? It's still unfolding today. So I guess the question and what this is all about is, so who is Christmas for? The world, us. See, through the Christmas story, we're reminded again, I want you to catch this, folks. Through the Christmas story, we're reminded again of how remarkable of a way this story speaks to us. It reminds us again that God is active even in times when we don't think he's even there. See, in your circumstances, church, and I know I'm speaking to people here because I felt it the instant you walked in. Through circumstances that seem like there's no way God cares. Through circumstances where it seems like there's no way God listens. Through circumstances when you're probably saying there's no way God will ever come through for me. We're reminded that God keeps his promises, church. God keeps his promises. Why? Because the world needs Christmas. The world needed Christmas. You and I needed Christmas. The world needs hope. The world needed reminded again that God keeps his promises regardless of what you might be going through. You want to know what this is about? This is all about God keeping his promises to you. I mentioned this before, but it is literally, I consider this a privilege, but please receive this in this way. One of the privileges that comes as being a pastor is being able to hear and listen and feel, if you will, people's storms, their trials, things that they're going through. There's some incredible things happening around you, church, and you're not even aware of it. And you might be sitting next to somebody who's probably going through the biggest struggle in their life right now. Why am I saying all that? Because for that person who, and maybe this is for you today, even if it's just one person, may you be reminded today, or maybe you're finding out for the first time today, there is a God out there that loves you that much. That's willing to send his only son. My kids are with me this morning, and I'll say this in complete humility in front of them, and I think they understand what their dad will say today. I love my kids, but I don't know if I'll ever will send my kids to die because of you. I love you, church, but that's a tough ask of anybody. I'm being honest with you today. I love them. I don't know if I'm willing to part with Jade and Gabby just for you to be safe. Yet we had a father who did do that. And he did all that. Listen, he promised that thousands of years ago to a couple who had no clue they would ever become pregnant. And right then and then, God spoke a promise of a hope, of a light that was going to change the world, folks. You still with me today? There might be something you're going through. I don't know what that is. It's none of our business to know that. But maybe today someone needs to hear for the first time or be reminded today that God truly loves you and he keeps his promises. Regardless of what we might do to not earn it, but you can never earn that. Regardless of what you might be going through or what you might have done to mess things up. And I just highlighted a few things through this whole entire huge backstory that makes this Christmas story so remarkable. But through all that, there was tons of dysfunction, disobedience, plundering, murder, deceit, unfaithfulness. You name it. It happened in this Christmas story. And yet, this is so beautiful. Why? Because God loves you. This right here says, I love you. In spite of who you are, in spite of what you have done, I love you. Church, there's no other love in the world that compares to this story.